Hi everyone, it's Mickey from GameMaker Cast. Welcome back. And in the previous episode, this is kind of where we left off. We had our scrolling background and scrolling floor. In this episode, what I want to do is import the player and kind of get some animation working for that specific sprite. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a new group, and we'll call this sprite group player. And in here, we'll make a new sprite called SPR player idle. Alright, so we are going to just edit our image, and then we want to import a strip image, stripe. And what we want to do is import the player themselves here. So we'll just import player.png, or sorry, player writing is the one we want. And again, we have 4 frames, and this is 64 by 64. The offset, we could just use 8 by 8. And then the horizontal separation, I believe, is 8 as well. That looks fine. Alright, so we'll hit convert. We'll say yes. Now, the only problem with these sprites is this one actually looks fine. Let's see what happens if we try and auto trim them. Alright, so that actually worked. So we won't have to worry about fixing those up. Alright, so we have the player sprite in here. So now let's go down and create a object. We'll add a group, just call it player, and then add a object, obj player. And we want to come in here, click player, and then click the player sprite idle. Now if we come back to the sprite and we edit the image, we can hit play here to kind of see how fast it's going, and for me that's just too fast. Looks like he's flopping all around. So let's change this to 10. That's a little bit better. Let's try 8. Alright, 8 looks fine. So we'll leave that at 8, and we can close out of here. And then that setting will keep. So in our player object player, we don't really have to do anything here to get this working right now. We can go into our room, and let's make a new instances layer, and we'll call this player. And make sure that this layer is on top of everything, or else your player won't show. So in here, we'll click on our player object, and I'll hold down Alt on my keyboard, and I can just place him in there. Alright, so if I save and I hit run, let's see what we have here. I'll just drag this over. And we have our player here. He's doing a little dance. Now, nothing too fancy. The only thing I want to do is we have this other sprite sheet here where we have this stepping motion. It's hard to see, but he steps down just kind of like you would do on a skateboard to get some speed. We're going to use this and randomize kind of when he's doing that. So in the player, we're going to create a new sprite called SPR player, and we'll just call this one step. And just like before, we'll edit our image, and we'll say import strip image, and we'll find our player step and say open. And this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sprites. They're 64 by 64. And again, this is the pixel offset is 8 by 8. And then they have a separation of 8. And we can hit convert and say yes. And as long as our player and they are in the same spot, we can come up here and we can just do a auto trim all frames. Alright, now we can close out of there. Actually, let's go back in and let's check out the animation. We want this one to be relatively quick, but not too quick. So let's change it to 12, maybe 10. We'll try 10 for now. We'll see how that's going to work on our player. Okay, so in our player object, we're going to have to create a step machine here. Or sorry, not step machine, a state machine. We're going to use a create event, and we're going to use a numerator for our player states. And our states for now are just going to be idle, and then we'll just say step down. Next, we need to create a variable to hold the state that we're in. So we could just say state equals player state. Actually, use states, not state. Dot idle. So all this is doing is assigning integer values to each one. So we could check the state to figure out what animation we want to play. So in the step event, we could use a switch statement, so switch state. And if the state is equal to player state.idle, then we want our sprite index to be spr player idle, and if our state is step down, then we want it to be set to step. And for now, all we're going to do is fix what we have here. Expected oh, I forgot the word case. Alright, so we will just say if keyboard check, we'll say released is vk space, then our state is going to be player state.idle, but if we press vk, let's say down, then we want to go into the step down state. Alright, so let's see here. Let's play this. And we should be sitting in our idle state here, which is just our player writing. We press the down key and he starts stepping down. We press the space key and he's back to idling. So what we want to do is flip between these two different states. So in our create event, we're going to have an alarm handle this. So we could say step alarm timer equals room speed times, and let's check every 2 seconds. So we'll say set alarm 0, alarm set 0 step alarm timer. So every 2 seconds, I want it to run alarm 0. So we'll add an event for alarm 0, and at the end we'll reset alarm. And what we want to do is we're going to check to make sure that we are in the idle state, because we're going to have more states later on. So we'll just add this code in now. So we'll say if state is equal to player state.idle, then we know that we can see if we can change into the step state. So in here, in our create event, let's actually create another variable. This variable will be the chance of our step. So we'll say step chance, and for now let's just make it 80. So this would be the percentage that the state can change. Alright, so in alarm 0, we could say if I random range between 0 and 100 is less or equal to our step chance, then in here we want to say state equals player state dot step down. Now if this happens, there's no way to tell it when the step is completely done to switch back to the idle. So we can do that in here. We could easily check to see what frame we're on. So we could say if sprite, not sprint, actually it's image index. So if the image index is bigger than the image number, then we are going to say our state is going to go back to player state.idle. Now the one thing that I want to point out here is if we debug this and we hit our debug. Alright, so we hit our first kind of glitch here. So we're in here, and if I hit F10, or I just step over, and then I hit play, you can see right now our image index is not set to 1, it's set to a fraction. So let's stop this, close our debugger, and what we could do is we could just say round image index. So we know this is a whole number, and we're just trying to get a whole number out of this. So if we come back, let's remove our keyboard states. So we have in our crate, we set up a couple states. We set the state to idle. We set our step chance pretty high, 80%. And then every 2 seconds, it's going to come into alarm 2. It's going to make sure we're in the idle step. And then we're going to see if we can change the state to step down. And then we just reset this alarm, move that underneath, just so this can keep checking every 2 seconds. In our step event, we're just doing a switch state. So if we're in our idle, we want to play player idle here. And if we're in our step, we're going to play player step. And then once the image index, so the frame that we're on, reaches the maximum frame, which is 6, we're going to change the state back to idle. And changing the state back to idle will also make it go into this if statement here. Alright, so let's hit play one more time. And we'll drag over the window here once it pops up. And we'll wait for a little bit. And let's see there, he's stepping down. He's stepping down quite a bit, and that's just because we have it set to 80. Alright, so let's go in here and let's change this to 25. And what we can do in the step alarm, in here, let's just do a show console, sorry, not show console, show debug message, step down. So we'll just do a little debugging as this runs. So I'll load the window one more time and load the game. I'll pull it over, and we set it to 25%, so that's kind of low. Maybe I also should have set the number. Basically, we want to see step down, and then it needs to stop. So we've kind of messed up somewhere here. Alright, so let's go back to our step event. So if, so here's what it is. So our rounding of image index is never going to be higher than the maximum number of frames. So this is going to be bigger or equals to. Normally it's going to be equals to, but let's throw in the bigger just in case something happens. Alright, so we'll get rid of that message because we know that shows up. We will run our game one more time. Let's pull over the window. And in a little bit, hopefully he will step down, and then he goes back to idle. And then randomly, 25% chance every 2 seconds that he will step down. So this is where I'm going to leave the game for now. I think the next one will get some physics going, some jumping animations, and falling animations. I'd like to thank you for watching, and like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.